And welcome back to the Gunners Club. You're here with Gunner and with Dixie.
Howdy.
And what a beautiful day.
I think it's a beautiful day to perhaps go to the moon.
Oh, right.
Now, I'm normally equipped for it. I always wear a Swiss watch. Now, a Swiss watch, it means more and more these days. It's got to be 50% at least of the manufacturing. Has to be about 60% by worth.
Yes.
Now that 60% is actually quite a lot. Final inspection as well, and service and headquarters to be in Switzerland. Now, as I said to you before, even the chant Aussie, 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 oi, oi, oi is only 50%
It's only
Australian.
half Australian.
The 60% is pretty good. When I'm not underwater and I like to actually live out my fantasy, I pretend that I'm have something in common with astronauts and went to the moon.
Okay. Now, some people are really into a thing I understand called pilot's watches, things like the IWC or the EVC, the big pilot watches, the Top Gun watches. This is taking it past the stratosphere and into space.
Yeah, I'm no longer wearing such a thick leather strap that it's essentially a jerk and stopping my watch from heating up and going through the material through to my wrist. Okay, now Omega lays claim to saying that they wear the flight qualified for all manned space missions watch.
They actually put it on the back of the watch, don't they?
They've changed a little bit now to make it gender neutral, but yes, they have, and I'll actually show it to you very soon. Now, there's something about this fantasy that Omega have traded off very, very well. Now, before we actually look at it, we've actually got to decide, did we go to the moon or not? Because if we went to the moon, then this is the most fantastic homage piece, commemorative piece. If it's not, then it's a little bit like Total Recall. They've implanted the memories, they've put it in your psyche, they've made it as part of every pop show that you've watched, and here's a souvenir so you can live out the fantasy.
Oh, look, I think that's what people do. I think every 19-year-old on the planet today wearing a Nirvana or Led Zeppelin t-shirt certainly haven't seen either of those bands play.
There's not a person who's actually caught that elusive dollar bill. So a great box like this will actually come with lithograph quality photos of each and every astronaut who's actually worn the watch on the moon on the outside of his outfit. So to show you it in the flesh, you will actually get with it a strap that you can wear on the outside of your
That is a
spacecraft.
very attractive case, isn't it?
It's really something. You feel like you're deploying. This was actually left on the surface of the moon. This is the hippocampus, the seahorse, which Omega use, and which in fact I have on my Seamaster. A monocle, so you can add or a jeweler's loop. Unfortunately, it only comes with one lens rather than double lens to really hone in on it. But again, with a tool watch, maybe you're asking for more quality than a tool watch should be. A tool watch should be functional. By functional, this was said to be chosen because it already existed before the Apollo missions. So we're looking at the Mercury missions and
The Gemini.
and the Gemini mission. So Mercury was into space and return, whereas rendezvous and docking and extra vehicle walking were actually done in the Gemini missions. So astronauts were already independently using this. Then for the Apollo missions, they actually put it to the test head to head with a number of other watches saying, can you put up with these temperature differences? It's not just the temperatures, it's the huge transitions from going to shade to non-shade. Acceleration and by default deceleration, pressure, and also sound, and firing a particular frequency at it and seeing its dependability. So these were things. A few other things that really stand out and why I got the tool version, I got what they call the Hesselite plastic. That means if I actually bang it and I get a hairline fracture, it's not going to be like glass, it's not going to separate and free float.
Sure.
Like particulate throughout the spacecraft.
They're great too, aren't they? Because you've got that liquid that you can put in it and basically cover up.
A polywatch, yeah. So
Yeah.
I've got basically a polywatch, which is just like a gritty toothpaste. You get it for about €8, and then anything that's scratched, you can just buff it out with just a bit of work. Could you open this for me?
Sure.
Now, if you're so of mind to not wear it on a strap, but actually wear it on a Velcro loop on the outside of your spacesuit, there you are.
So what, wear it into work over your Italian suit, your Armani suit or whatever?
On the outside of your moon boot, I'd reckon.
Yeah.
Now, here's the thing. It's all very exciting and all very legitimate and respected, but it's so tied to our fortune of if we actually went there. You may know just the first of this month that a Japanese billionaire, Yasuko Misawa, who was actually going to fly with 8 artists of his choosing as the patron to the moon, around the moon and back, not actually landing, has actually pulled out. He's actually said that the timeline has slipped so constantly and there's no likelihood of it being in the near future that he's just abandoning hope.
So that the technology is just not there to do that.
Commercially, they cannot actually meet a deadline, a definite deadline.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the technology's there, I don't know. Now, this is a homage watch. It's not the original column wheel chronograph.
Does that mean it would have the same tolerances or definitely not?
It's been recertified. Every time a new series of missions such as Gemini comes, they'll actually say what is the current Omega that's in production and they'll certify that.
Okay, so the one in the store today has got a different movement than this.
Again, yes.
And
it
it's
has.
getting closer to the original?
No, further away. That will be a
Further
coaxial.
away.
So we'll actually have a pendulum on the back. If you see, this has got like a nautilus shape on the back, which is actually a pendulum weight to self-wind it. And it's also using coaxial, which means that there's less friction. It's more a definite push rather than a nudge.
So a better watch?
A more longer lasting watch.
Okay.
People didn't want a pendulum movement on this. They said in zero gravity there's no such thing as a self-winding watch because you need gravity. That's actually not true. You certainly flick your wrist around enough to wind up the watch anyway, but this is what there was when we actually did our space shuttle missions. So
No, I've been into Omega boutiques. I wear Omega watches as well. Although certainly not tool, I go more for the glamour. But certainly when you go to the boutiques, don't they dedicate a lot of space to this watch, to the moon watch? And basically, it's a bit like a gallery, a celebration of that triumph on the moon.
I mean, George Clooney was the person who took it from just being a tool watch to your broad arrowhead. So you're paying essentially twice as much. If I want to have the actual moon watch that landed on the moon, they call that the pre-moon watch, believe it or not, then you'd be looking at $45,000 plus.
That's Australian, so over 30,000 US.
Oh, for sure, sure. And the watch itself, the blueprints were lost for it. It's like saying we lost the moon landing original film. And they had to actually...
Wouldn't it be uncanny if that had happened?
Wouldn't it be... Anyway, let me just state my claim here, right? How many years has it been since our first moon landing? Well, 1969, 55 years, right?
And what, there were 5 subsequent moon landings after that? I think there were 6 in total.
Yes, 12 men have walked on the moon and 1 failed mission. Now, if I compare the landing of the South Pole, right, which was hard to get to, and no economic reason, right? 1911. Now, there was a small base there during World War II, but in terms of a permanent base, we're looking 1957 or 58, which is 56 years. Now, for no economic reason, and we're looking at coming up to 56 years for the moon.
We are.
Right? Or the settlement of North America. Look, Christopher Columbus of Spain found the place. I know the Vikings found it in 1000 AD, but 1492. 5 years later, the English have actually got a person from a different nationality to go there on behalf and by proxy claim Newfoundland. And the first Spanish colony in Florida, 68 years. Okay, so, but there was definitely an economic reason for that, and the people who did it had to be heroes. And it wasn't about technology being lost. You had to have the right conditions too. Okay, this is either the greatest homage to heroism and the contribution of men and women in space and test pilots and scientists and the ability of a government to put a dream on its people, or it is a total recall scenario where I've been given a great big box and patted on the head. I'd love to know what people think below.
But gee, in any case, still a lovely watch.
It'd be the last watch I get rid of.
Manual wind, so a bit of a pain to live with because you've got to keep it wound up.
Unless you're
for the
kind of
time.
fidgety, yeah.
Yeah, unless you're sort of fidgety. Lovely watch. What do you think? Tell us in the comments below and stick with us. We've got many more adventures to come. We'll see you soon.
Hooroo.